Hi, this is Public Ohio Sportsman, and I figured it was appropriate since I'm making deer steaks because there's 6 inches of snow out, and I have a full freezer to show you a little bit about how I make deer steak marinade start to finish. We'll go over a little bit about how to cut out a perfect steak on the video that we did the teaser for, but unsalted butter, regular butter, whatever. You're going to want butter though for the sear on the steak, and this is just a basic pan fry. I like any salt grinder, black pepper grinder. We don't really have the most of this, so I was looking for liquid smoke. Can't really find that at the moment. That goes in the marinade. Paprika is an amazing just overall ingredient. And then adobo is just a nice like garlic with white pepper. Right over here in my kids' bowls, I have what are rehydrated morels from last year. So I have, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, and I rehydrated them overnight. We're going to cut them in half, saute them with those onions, and I'm going to go into the steaks and the cuts and what my deer steak looked like when I cut them. So here's this, just out of the bag. That's my basic cut of deer steak on a regular paper plate, so you can get an idea. For a steak this size, I'll probably cook it 3 or 4 minutes on high once it's actually scorching with that butter. Get a nice sear, and as soon as it starts to crisp, flip it over. Once this meat, feel how soft that is. And this is also a good time, if you can see right there, to grab a hair off, so your kids, wife, whoever doesn't complain, because hair can be a texture thing for some people and it can completely ruin it even if it tastes great. So what I'm going to show you today is my basic marinade. We'll show you before and after, and then we're going to put some morels and chopped up sauteed onions and butter, and then do the steaks and butter. And but for the marinade, we're going to just go with a regular, any soy sauce will work, and Worcestershire sauce. We don't have the most, but we'll make it work. I have 8 steaks in here that I've done. Sorry about my kids' toys and other fly tying stuff, which I'll be doing a video about that stuff here pretty soon. And you'll see that bag come out here pretty soon because I plan on doing that. But yeah, kids stuff. And then there's another deer steak. So pretty much, if I were to go like this is a deer that I processed myself. So when I have that big muscle and I'm cutting steaks out, I'm trying to do them pretty evenly. I trimmed them pretty well. You can tell there's no real like tendons. This probably came off the back hind legs, the like back hams. There might be a little bit of like connective tissue, but that's not really going to be an issue. The meat is not freezer burnt. It's actually beautiful. I mean, I want that pink consistency inside. So I usually, with a steak that's about, I don't know, I'd say that's a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch thick steak, I would do about 3 minutes, 4 minutes on each side, just till it gets a good brown. Flip it, and you're not going to put the seasonings on until right before it goes in the pan. You're going to actually pat dry them off when you're done with your marinade, which is the 2 simplest ingredients ever. It works for everything. My wife turned me on to this, which she did it with pork chops, which I am not a big pork fan of pork chops. It's just always got that really swiney flavor for some reason, but that completely washes it off. And you only need to do it for a couple hours. I mean, you could do that with these steaks for 3-4 hours, and then take them out, pat dry them, apply your salt, pepper, adobo, steak seasoning, paprika, the spices that you would usually use on a steak of whatever you prefer. And then the mushrooms, the morels that are the last from last year, that are rehydrated, that I rehydrated overnight. I just poured off the mushroom stock from them. I'm going to julienne these and put some butter and we're going to mix them up. I usually do that first and set those off to the side in a separate pan, which I'll go back to later. But for right now, we're just going to work on the basic marinade, and then we'll show you step by step. So stick with us, and we will be back for a final result and a couple cooking steps in between. Thanks. I forgot to actually apply the marinade so that you can see. Now that the steaks are off of here and they're back in that bag, I'm going to apply the marinade, the Worcestershire. Okay, I'm going to generously, I mean, there is really no, there's 8 steaks in here, so that's a good amount. I mean, there's some in there. I usually go a little bit heavier on the soy than I do the Worcestershire. You'll see where it's at now. It'll be probably about there when I'm done. Like I said, it will be about there when I'm done. It's just a good way to cover it. And then another secret that I've learned, if you wrap it, you start seeing that liquid coming up towards your seal. I kind of halfway seal it so I don't completely spill it everywhere, because there will be times that you see how it's creeping up right there, that you'll actually spill it. So I know to stop right there. And I just go like that. And now that whole thing of meat is being covered by marinade for the next 3 or 4 hours is just fine for this much meat. I'd say this is probably 2-3 pounds of deer steak. And yeah, it just getting that air out completely covers the steak. So that's a very important step, but it's a 2-part marinade that works for everything that my wife showed me, and I haven't turned back since because it's amazing. So if you have extra meat that you want to try it on, and it literally is so universal, you can use it for, like I said, she does it with pork chops and mushroom cream sauce for dinner sometimes. I'm doing it for deer steaks. It takes any gaminess out. It's a lot more kid friendly. Your family and friends will like it this way a lot more than if you were to just grab the deer and try cooking it. So I'm going to just put this back on this dirty plate because it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put them back in the fridge. Then I'm going to come back and julienne these and show you what I'm doing with these. I'm prepping my ingredients now before I pat dry these after they're done in a couple hours. And then I apply my seasonings. And I'll probably do about this whole stick of butter. I mean, I'll use about half of it to saute the mushrooms and onions. And then probably the other half in like little teaspoon amounts to add to the pan as I cook. So that way it's almost like I'm deglazing the pan from the spices that stick. When it gets hot enough, you add a tablespoon of butter to it. It'll melt and it'll kind of loosen up that char finish on the bottom of the pan, and you can get a really nice sear on your steaks that way. So for right now, that's what I got, and we'll be back here in just a second. So I cleaned off my onion here, took the skin off and everything. I split it in half. As you can see, these little pits right here, that little brown spot, I'll usually take my thumb and I'll just pull that out, and that's what I'm left with, and that's perfect for julienning it. I'll actually set this aside so I have some more workspace. And then what I do, take the tip of your knife, cut down and then out. Tip of knife in, down. Watch your fingers. Remember, your thumbs can get hit pretty good. But on half of an onion, you're gonna literally just kind of peel some of these apart. And honestly, what I usually do is just kind of run my hands along them, since I have washed and sanitized my hands already. And I'm just going to get a little pile of onion and just get everything together. But yeah, this is going to saute down really nice. It's going to give it a nice topping for the steak, and I'm excited to do it like this. But let me just go through that one more time. That's pretty much what you're going to want, is just petals of your onion. So now that I'm good with that, remember I said took told you to take that out. So that piece right there, I'm gonna you're just gonna kind of mess around with it till it wants to pop out. And you know what, that's good enough for me because that's the pit. I mean, it's all stuff that I don't really need. So I'll throw that out. And then, for all practical purposes, I'll throw these mushrooms up here so I can show you what I'm going to do with those next. But with this, you know, you'll get a little scrap from ripping off your skin and everything. We might only use one onion compared. I need to see the ratio because it will cook down and it'll shrink. So what I'm doing here is, now that I have my pitted, you know, the nasty pit that's very strong is out, and it's cut in half. This is literally half of an onion that's been cleaned up. So you're literally just going to chop this end, cut it in half, and then you have your two pieces that I just showed. End cut, half. Then you have two pieces that are unpitted. I took the pits out, which I just showed you, and now we're going to go ahead and julienne it just for a second time, just to get you a good and it doesn't matter. Sometimes it'll flip over like that and I'll just keep going like this. But at the end of the day, each piece has like 4 or 5, 6 different petals. So I might only need one onion for these steaks and mushrooms, because I think I only have about 8 morels from last year that were dehydrated that I rehydrated, which we already talked about. So, and then this is what I do. I just kind of go through and peel these off and make sure everything's good with them. And like I said, these are going to shrink down 1/3 at least when I actually get them good and sauteed in butter and seasoned and everything like that. But I have a lot of people ask us how we cook our deer and like, oh, I can't wait to come over for dinner. Well, now you can do it at your own home. And you can pause this video as many times as you need, ask whatever questions you want. We are more than willing to help anybody, or if you even have a better way that you'd like to see us try. We love culinary feats, so we would love to try different recipes. If you have anything that you want to post or pictures up on our page to try, or recipes, we will get to them as soon as we can. We both have children, we both have jobs. This isn't our main thing, but we're trying to just in the spare time while we can, while it's winter out, we're gonna try to do as many videos as we can. So these are these rehydrated morel mushrooms. Morel mushrooms are kind of a delicacy. They only grow about 3 weeks a year in northeast Ohio. I'd say sometime in April and early May. Turkey season. Anytime turkey season's on, you want to be looking down on the ground for sheds and morels, which are also known as spongies. As you can tell, you can hear it. That's also because I rehydrated them. Well, morels are also another sure thing. Is they have this spongy looking look. They really don't look like any other mushroom in the woods, but you can get false morels that have a solid inside. All morels that are true free morels, they're hollow. So when you cut them, they're going to open up like that. And that's completely normal. If you want them smaller, which I probably will because the onions are smaller, you can cut them up like this. They're very delicate to work with. There's also the potential for going like this. And if you had some sort of cream cheese, chive, any type of, second baked potato type deal that you wanted to shove in there and, put on a pan and roast them, maybe wrap them in bacon. I've heard people doing stuff like that as well. I personally like them on steak. They have a more smoky flavor to them, If you haven't tried them, they do sell them on Amazon dehydrated already for about $15 an ounce. I buy a lot of different things off of Amazon, so you'll hear me say that. I'm not really sure what brands I buy all the time, but they all pretty much do the same thing. Always look at your reviews before you buy stuff. But yeah, I mean, we're just going to go through now, and now you got the basic of the morel. You know, or people will even make little poppers too out of this. Like they'll chop this end off, use that, and put, you know, a piece of deer meat in there and cream cheese and bacon, you know, or turkey breast or something like that, because spring and turkeys around Northeast Ohio match the time frame of these. So with these ones, what I ended up doing was I put them on a window. What's the word I'm looking for? A window. Honey, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Oh, the thing that goes in the window keeps bugs out.
Screen?
Yeah, I used a window screen. Sorry, I'm going blank. I used a window screen, and what I did was I took them, picked them out of the woods, and then from there I sat them in front of a fan for about, I don't know, 3 to 5 days. You can really tell when they're getting dehydrated. I also save like the jerky packs with the absorbent moisture things, and what I'll do then is I'll put my dehydrated mushrooms in them in a jar with a couple of those in there. So if there is any excess moisture while they're stored away for the year, the packets will absorb the excess moisture, and you have less chance of ruining your morels. And they dry out pretty quick. They're probably about 5, 6, 7 days in front of a good fan on medium or high on a plate. Anything that you can aerate from the top and the bottom to where they get an even consistency would be perfect. I mean, you could probably even put them in a strainer if you were in a pinch, and then put them on a plate in front of a fan in your room, you know, or hang them. What did I do last year, honey? I took a piece of rope, and I took sewing needles and I stuck it through like this, and I hung them in our laundry room, and I put a fan on them for 4 or 5 days, and this mushroom literally shrunk from this size to that, you know what I mean? And then when you rehydrate them in hot water overnight, some people say 45 minutes. They're still tough after 45 minutes. These are more spongy. They're more forgiving. This is a big thing here in Ohio. I mean, the Amish boys down here, they really take their mushroom hunting seriously. I mean, a lot of guys mushroom hunt. A lot of older guys mushroom hunt. A lot of people stumble into them and don't know really what they're doing with them. But this is one of my favorite ways to prepare a morel. And that is right there. That's a beautiful morel. I mean, that is just a perfect morel mushroom that I cannot wait to enjoy. I mean, it's the size of my finger, and I'm 6'5". So we'll go like that. I think I should. This is a pretty big one, so I'll probably cut in 4s, like I said, just to kind of have an even ration to onion ratio. So there you go. There you have it. Even this one I'll chop again. And they'll shrink too, but these little pieces are very potent in their flavor with the smokiness. So I highly suggest it. Worst comes worst, you don't like it. And you just realize that you don't like it. So now that all this is prepared, I'm going to throw all this in. And I can even season this ahead of time. A lot of times what I will do though, just for my own personal preference, is I will take a small bit of extra olive oil and I will literally just drip a little bit around here. Okay? Not a whole bunch, not a whole lot, maybe a couple tablespoons or something. Helps it not to stick. And extra virgin olive oil actually has the mono and polytrans fats or whatever in them, which are actually better for you. And then I'll go ahead and season it now because I'm literally just going to dump this into a pan later. You don't want to put too much of this adobo on there because it is pretty strong, but you want enough to taste
By
it.
strong, you mean salty.
Salty,
It is
exactly.
salty.
So now that I'm adding the salt, that's plenty. Now a little bit of pepper, just a little bit of black pepper. Because you gotta think they're on the bottom too. And all this is gonna mix in. And why not? We'll throw a little paprika in there as well. Steve Ranella likes to use on meat eater. He's really big into the smoked paprika. We've tried a couple pinches of it. Unfortunately, when we moved, I didn't really find it too much, but it's
Pretty similar.
pretty similar. It has a little bit, maybe they use a smoking salt cure or something with it. But paprika is a go-to for chicken, whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to save this for a couple of the steaks, like the dry rubs, because I don't want to waste on here. Otherwise, if this thing was full, I'd dump a little bit of that on there as well. But this is pretty well seasoned. It's going to be fine once I get it out there and mix it all in. And now that's already prepped, so I don't have to worry about that in a couple hours. And I actually didn't need 2 onions. I just needed 1 onion about that size and 8 decent sized morels to make this. And I have 8 steaks as well. So I hope you learned from this video. If you have any questions, comments, like, subscribe, do what you need to do, and you'll see the finished product here soon. Thank you. Alright, now that the steaks have been marinating for 3, 4, 5 hours in the Worcestershire and soy, took them out, dried them off with a paper towel, set them aside to get to room temperature before I cook them, and I applied a good generous dry rub to them, and we'll see how they turn out from here. Just a nice size hunk of butter. There's my thumb reference. And get it all up and down and around. And then we're going to go ahead and saute these, which is our peppers and onions that we seasoned earlier in the video. I'll show you how they turn out and roughly how long they took. It's 4:12 right now. Starting to get a good color, so starting to get a very nice color. And it's starting to caramelize. I'll actually probably cut the heat down and add some more butter to kind of make everything not stick, but initially it's going. Oh yeah. This is 418, and this is where it's progressed to. It's starting to get translucent, the onions. Honestly, depending on how you like everything, you could pull it right now. If you like your onions a little crispy and your morels a little soft, but I'm going to keep going for probably another 5 minutes. So, and then, especially because nothing sticking either. The morels are getting good. That butter. Oh yeah. So this is where I took them off at. and that's the color I like everything. So I'm going to also just reheat it for probably about 2 or 3 minutes right before I serve it, after I'm done cooking the steaks, which are right here. Get a nice dry rub on them. Let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah. That. And all that just spread on top. That's the idea. My wife made long grain wild rice to go along with the morels back there that will be reheated once we're ready for the steaks. We got the long grain wild rice. Yum. And right now it's 4:56. Melt some butter up for these steaks. And we'll show you where they go out from here. And that's what it should look like. When they get on there, they should sear real nice. That butter all over that pan. Don't overcrowd the pan, or everything won't cook evenly. We'll probably do, these are probably 1/2 inch steaks. I'll probably do 5 minutes on each side just to be on the safe side. Let them sit for about 10, and then cut into them and see how they were, if they're medium or medium rare or rare. They'll definitely be pink when I'm done with them, but for now, that's all I got. I've let them go for probably, I don't know, 3 minutes or so. I'm just going to take a peek. About perfect. Go ahead and flip it. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip these other ones. And then I'm probably going to show you the deglazing process towards the end to give them some more color. Like where it's seared but it's not as brown. I can fix that with all that in there. When you throw some butter in it and swirl them around, it's going to pick up all that extra seasoning and burnt stuff, and it's going to give it more flavor. It's going to be delicious. Stay tuned. Well, now that I have them flipped, that's what they look like. Nice sear. I'll give them 2-3 more minutes on each side. If you look, you can kind of tell that one's still got some pink in it, which is a good sign. I mean, you can look at the sides of them and really tell what's what. But you don't want to overcook it. You don't want to undercook it either. I'd say 165 is safe. I would eat this at 145 for rare, 125 for rare. But 165 should be like a medium rare. 185 is going to be more of your well done stuff. And I like mine medium or lower. So, stay tuned. Now, what I'm about to do is deglaze it now that I've flipped them back over. So what I'm going to do is take a small amount of butter and watch this. It won't get off the spoon. You see how that butter's just sitting there? Once you start going like that, spinning it around a little bit, it's not only going to lube the pan up for the next round, but it's also going to start smoking probably, so I should turn on my fan. Let me show you what the color will be like now. And if you look, it's probably a medium rare. If you get some juices that come out, but they're not too terribly bad. The juices are mainly the muscle breaking down, letting you know that it's done. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to take these off so they're not scorched, but they'll have a nice juice to them. Okay, so this is a wrap-up video. These are the last 3. I'm about to add a little bit of butter right there to that once these have been done a little bit more, because I mean, and then on top of it, you want to feel it You can tell that that's very rare. It should firm up a little bit more. I like kind of more like this consistency, more than this very. So I mean, you can feel when it's good. Like this one actually, probably, I can use another minute or two. But when in doubt, get a food thermometer. But I've never gotten sick. I mean, as long as you attempt to sear it and it's not a 4-inch piece of meat, you should be fine. And then right now I'm also adding a little butter to the morels. These back up from earlier. And then we're going to add them on top of those steaks and show you a plate with the wild long grain rice, the rehydrated morel mushrooms from last year, along with some onion that's sauteed, the venison steaks, and some green beans. Here's what I mean about the juices coming out. You can see it just has some red coming up to the surface. That's nothing to be disturbed about. It's not bad or anything. So I just wanted to let you see it. If you see it, yeah, you can swipe it away. I mean, it's literally just cooking meat. So when you cut into that, that should be nice and good. But we're about to deglaze it now and add everything together. But I just wanted to show you guys that. A lot of people were like, "Oh my God, what is this stuff right here? What's on my deer?" Well, it's just blood coming out. It's nothing. I mean, it's nothing outrageous. Alright? Wait till you see when you cut into these. Just sizzle. Pick up the plate, baby. Pick up the plate, baby. The finished product. The wild rice, wild long grain rice, the green beans with garlic, and then the venison steak with morels. Once we cut into it, there will be a picture at the end of this video to show you what the consistency and pinkness is inside the steak once we cut into it. Thanks.